All right, hello everyone. Welcome to episode 28 of A Few Good Mics, first episode of the new year. Back with the full crew this time, finally. Got, of course, Nate Dogg right here. Mike with the Brewer hat right there. And Garb with the Packer hat.
Hey, just had to turn down SmackDown. What's up?
We'll start off with the news of the weekend for us Packer fans. We got two big changes that we were fucking clamoring for. Ted Thompson is gone as GM, and Dom Capers is out as DC. Let's just take a second to be super pumped about the news.
Hallelujah! Hallelujah!
A couple of years late on both of them, I'd say.
Honestly, I'll be honest. I just want to jump on and say it's kind of weird that a Vikings fan is appraising that choice, but whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, why don't you build our stadium for them, asshole?
Still using that garbage script.
You will never get that off your resume.
It's not on my
It's on
resume.
it's on your permanent record.
Permanent
But
record.
we also discussed the fact that McCarthy's on with an extension too. So, excitement, but disappointment.
Well, I don't give a shit about that extension. That extension doesn't mean anything.
No, it doesn't.
Because it's only basically just so he didn't have 1 year left on his contract. That's standard operating procedure in most sports, I think.
And they're giving the GM full reign to hire and fire coaches at his will. So if he doesn't like McCarthy, he could be gone when he comes in tomorrow.
So speaking of that, we got 3 candidates apparently for the GM, in-house candidates. Of course, the strong name and the fan favorite's Elliot Wolf, and I'm actually not super prepared. Brian Gutekunst, I'm not sure what his name is.
He's entertaining other offers too. I've been seeing.
And there was a third guy, Russ Ball, their salary cap guy. They're the top 3 in-house candidates. And then, of course, you got John Schneider, the GM of the Seahawks, being rumored as a possibility. I'm not sure where else they would go for that, but what are your thoughts on the GM search as it's in its early stages?
I like the search. I think it's a matter of, I'd like to see it in between Elliot Wolf and John Schneider just because, Schneider obviously has been a GM for a while now in Seattle. He's a Green Bay guy. He's born and raised in Green Bay, or De Pere, whatever, if we're being politically correct. But I think either one of those two, and Wolf's got a strong pedigree of, his dad's the reason why we ever heard of this guy named Brett Favre. So I think one of those two guys would definitely bring a lot of poise to the Packers organization. And we just need a guy that's, not afraid to make moves, not afraid to get into free agency. So, if we can get a guy that actually will dig into free agency and not like Ted where he just builds to the draft, I think we'll be better off. So,
just kind of keeping going with what you're saying there too. I really hope Green Bay takes their time through their process. There's no need for them to go in a rush to find some guy. Yeah, the draft's coming around in a couple of months, but don't rush into it. Don't try to sign someone right away just to fill that spot. I really hope they actually take their time and figure out someone who's good for the spot, because having Aaron Rodgers as your franchise quarterback is one of the most appealing things for a general manager to have. So make sure you can find someone who can actually utilize that to create more wins, especially – hate to say it, Rodgers doesn't probably have much left. 5-6 years, but you got to get at least another Super Bowl or 2 trips out of him. So I'm just hoping they take their time to find someone who knows what they're doing to utilize the system.
I think that they're gonna. Obviously, it's not like you're hiring somebody for a fryer. They're going to do the research and obviously hire the best fit for the organization. But I also do think, you do want to get that done sooner rather than later. The draft is coming up, and what kind of GM wants to come in right after the draft? The Packers organization is most appealing because there's no owner. There's nobody to can your ass. And it's why Ted Thompson was there for years on years on years on years. And that being said, that tied with Aaron Rodgers makes it one of, if not the best job in as a GM in the NFL. I was listening to some guys on the radio talk about it, and they were saying that with this move Mark Murphy made after so long, that like I just said, it's a very coveted position. Everyone's going to want it. They talked about John Schneider just after signing the. You can't be putting things in the chat while we're doing this.
I just want you to quote your sources.
From the Seahawks. What's that?
Just saying, quote your sources.
Was that Wild and Tausch or what?
ESPN Madison. I don't remember who it was.
Wild and Tausch. I don't even live there, and I know that.
They're like the most prominent people, and then every time I listen to that show, I was talking to Diesel about this the other day, and he's like, "Oh, Wilde and Tausch." No, wasn't Wilde and Tausch. Other people do speak on it. For the record, it is not just Wilde and Tausch 24/7. Obviously, it's a coveted job. They're obviously going to do their research. I don't think they're going to venture too far out. I don't think you're going to pull John Schneider just because I think that they are going to take a person in-house that's going to be a little bit more conservative, knows the way they do things in Green Bay, and kind of ride that wave out, especially with Ted Thompson still in the system. And it's just they're not going to come in and build this massive defense like the Steelers did, or the Seahawks or whoever. They're not just going to come in and all of a sudden the Packers are just picking up free agents left and right, and we're trading draft picks and doing whatever. That's just not going to be the way it is. They're going to pick somebody in-house. It's going to be casual transition. Maybe over time they will get more aggressive and whatnot, but I don't think you'll see much change. It is a good change, but I don't think there's going to be much change in the next year or two at the GM position.
That's fair. That's a fair comment.
But if we just get a new GM and then have basically the same run, like 10 years of not doing anything, because at least try to go after free agents. That's all we're really asking for. You don't have to be Denver and you're not going to sign everybody. That's not really realistic. But when's the last you never hear Green Bay's name in anything, like unless they actually sign somebody.
You hear their name in shit picks, like Lance Kendrick. Realistically, Martellus Bennett was an awful signing. Turned out, you didn't know that going in, but it turned out. And if you look back at the stats,
but at the time it was pretty big.
Exactly. But if you look back at the stats, even you could argue Jared Cook. Take away his catch in Dallas, the guy didn't do a thing all season.
That was the best catch.
But it was irrelevant outside of that one catch.
And before he got to Green Bay, didn't even have a touchdown in the year before. So
Devon House, free agent. Really,
the thing with tight ends,
spectacular.
Tight ends don't usually get utilized in Green Bay, so I think that's just a fair comment for Kendricks, Cook, Bennett, all of them. They're not heavily used as much as you think they would be, but you are right. Outside of that one play in Dallas, which was amazing, Jared Cook was average at best. But I'd say the last big name we got was Peppers. And what was that, 4 years ago now?
Yeah,
and even at that,
that was 5 years after we should have signed him the first time.
Yeah. And he was still older, so it's not like that was that big, holy cow, look who we got guy. It's just that's how infrequent we actually get people. But
we'll
see.
There's some decent free agents out there this time, like around this year, I think. And we're going to see them make some cap room just because I wouldn't imagine both Jordy and Randall Cobb with the money they're making, they won't both be on the roster. Clay Matthews is going to have to take a pay cut, especially in the last year of his deal. And then I don't think they bring back House.
No.
So they might even let Morgan Burnett go if they like Josh Jones that much. So I think they'll end up having a lot of cap room, so they can go at least try for some guys. But
my thing is, a lot of times you see these guys, like you talk Jarvis Landry, correct? That's who you're hinting at.
Well, that's the big. He's the big fish receiver out there.
It's like a couple years ago when Mike Wallace was that guy coming out of the Steelers. A lot of times these big time wide receivers like that are trash when you pick them up, and you're overpaying the piss out of them. Yeah, I mean, obviously not everybody's going to hit goal, but I hit on it earlier. Stephon Diggs was a steal. I would rather have him, and you're paying him way less than you're going to pay. Obviously, again, not everybody's going to be Stephon Diggs, but you got Adam Thielen, Cooper Kupp just went really late with the Rams. I mean, there's plenty of rookie receivers that can kill it. Doesn't even have to be a rookie, but I'm just saying, like, I think there's better options and much better for. We have Aaron Rodgers. He's going to elevate the play of a mediocre wide receiver. I bet you Devontae Adams goes to any other roster and he's mediocre at best.
Well, I think you could say the same about like Geronimo Allison. I mean, he's kind of been up and down, but I don't see that guy is making any roster if he doesn't have Aaron Rodgers. I mean, it's just one of those things that I don't know. He's an average at best, maybe receiver, but I mean, he's kind of gone under Aaron's wing, and Aaron's kind of taught him a little bit of how to do what he needs to do. So,
but all right, so I don't know. So if we're gonna make, if you guys want to make any picks now of who you think they'll get for their GM?
I'm gonna put money on in-house.
Just any one of those three guys.
I had to pick. I'd say Wolf, but that's my personal preference.
I'm gonna go with Mike there, just because I think anyone in-house has much better value than anybody outside, just because they know the program better. But kind of I go with it's. I mean, honestly, it's Green Bay. How often do they kind of pull the wool over your eyes on some of these sort of incidences? It's kind of hard to predict what they're going to do. I'd like to see Wolf, but I wouldn't be surprised if they don't go with them, just because that's the obvious choice. Green Bay doesn't always go with the black and white. They like to live in that gray.
And, well, my thinking is I tweeted the other day that I think it's going to be Wolf, but they wouldn't have tried so hard to keep those guys at, like, when San Francisco was looking for a GM, when Detroit was looking for a new GM, the Giants this year. Because they knew Ted Thompson was going to, in the next, like, they knew his time was going to be short. So they wouldn't have tried to keep those guys if they weren't going to hire one of them to be their to be the eventual Ted Thompson replacement. So, yeah, it's definitely going to be a guy in-house, I think. I'd agree with that.
Yeah, I would probably go with, Wolf as well. Just because I know I'm in the other in-house guy. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. But I know he's been entertaining some other offers outside the organization. So I think in the long run, I mean, John Schneider would be nice because, he knows how to make moves, and he's been I would hope that we get either, Wolf, who's someone, roots are in Green Bay, all like that. But, with Schneider, I mean, he knows how to go out and make moves, and, and obviously his record shows that, he can be a productive GM in the NFL. So
the thing that's really appealing to for me with Schneider is, he picked Wilson, arguably an MVP this year, killed it. I mean, he had nothing, not even a defense this year, and dominated. And I mean, obviously he's been in the league for a while now, but like everyone said he was too small. He was this, he was that. They drafted him late, and he started his rookie year. And then look at Richard Sherman, who was drafted late, second, third round. I think he was in third round, wasn't he? Third
round.
Yeah. You have all these guys that are just drafted late, and they well-drafted teams every year, and that's how they build. Obviously, they picked up some pieces here and there in free agency, but the guy knows what he's doing. And their defense was top tier, like borderline best ever. Speaking of best ever, for like 2 years in a row, and took him to a Super Bowl. I mean, I just don't think that all happens by chance. I mean, the guy knows what he's doing.
Yeah, and that was the Russell Wilson thing. Especially, he wasn't handicapped from when he signed Matt Flynn. Because how many GMs would just say, "Oh, we signed a big money quarterback. We're not going to draft anybody. That's our guy." But he just obviously he saw the talent there, and then you take him no matter what, no matter who you got in the roster. But any quick thoughts on the defensive coordinator position being open now too. Obviously, we all rooted for Capers. I was calling for his head for the last 3-4 years now. But fucking, any ideas of who we could end up getting? But I don't know any names out there.
Yeah, I at this point I don't know of anyone who I'd like say, oh, I want him to come there, but yet again, I haven't really. It's been what 30 hours since the news broke yesterday. I really haven't thought much about it.
All right, that's fair. All right, what about you guys, Mike, Nate?
My thing with the D coordinator, honestly, is I would love to stray outside the organization on this one, get a fresh head in there. I don't care if they want to change the entire scheme entirely, even if it doesn't best fit our players this year. We need a change. We need a massive change. Our defense has been terrible, and we need someone to come in there, revamp it. And, sometimes that's all it needs is a new coach, fresh set of eyes, come in. I mean, look at the Rams. Obviously, that's a whole coach, not necessarily a D coordinator. But look at it. Jeff Fisher, garbage for how many years? And then same exact team. Jared Goff was like last in the league, and now he's like a monster. It's. I think a fresh set of eyes outside the organization would be huge for us. I know Mooney had talked privately with me about the DB's coach being well coveted there or whatnot. I want to just go outside the organization. I want to pull somebody in that's fresh and just give him the reins. Have at it. If he fails miserably, deal with it then. But we can't be any worse on defense. Let's be honest.
That's it. I was just saying because the only names that I had read about was you have Winston Moss, who is basically the assistant D coordinator to Capers, and he's even interviewing for some head coaching jobs this year. And then the DB's coach Joe Witt, who I think the players seem to like too. And but yeah, and then the name outside the organization I read was Vic Fangio, the Bears defense coordinator. And he was he was the D coordinator in San Francisco too, back when they had like Patrick Willis and all those guys. And they had a good D. So I wouldn't mind that either.
Yeah, and I mean with Fagano, he's brought in a lot of young guys in Chicago. And I mean, Bears defense is much better than ours last year. With Eddie Jackson and guys like that back there. So I mean, but I'd like to see us go out and get one of these, one of these young gun coordinators. I'm not like you guys said. We need new eyes. We need guys that are actually like Sean McVay. I mean, obviously not. Just kind of knows what he's doing and shit like that. I'm not saying obviously not come to Green Bay, obviously, but just one of those things. We just need a young gun coordinator that has been doing really well for a short period of time and can bring a lot of good things to the organization. And like you said, a fresh set of eyes would definitely do the trick outside the organization.
All right, so I figured we'll move on next to we got NFL playoffs starting this weekend. The matchups in the wild card round, you got the first game on Saturday, the Titans at the Chiefs, and then the Saturday night game is the Rams at home against the Falcons. And then Sunday, you got Buffalo against making their first playoff appearance since 1999 against the Jacksonville Jaguars, I believe their first appearance since 06, 07, something like that. And then Carolina, New Orleans. We won't talk about all the games, but I just think which matchup, I guess, this weekend is the one you're most looking forward to. Which one do you think will be the best one?
To be honest, I'm looking forward to Bills Jaguars just because it's so out there. Like every year, you're going to hear either the Saints, the Panthers, the Falcons. I mean, it's not every year, but those are regular names. Rams are going to be a regular name. Chiefs typically are a regular name. Bills, Jaguars, I mean, you said it right there. It's been several years, 17 for the Bills specifically. I'm looking forward to this game just purely based on who's playing in it and that it's been so long. Now, honestly, the game I'm going to want to watch the most is Falcons-Rams. I think it's just going to be an exciting game. But just for the historical perspective of the length, I mean, Bills-Jaguars is going to be probably the most exciting just for that aspect.
Yeah, I think it's definitely an interesting one. I mean, geez, I was surprised that Buffalo even got in after that whole. They pretty much gave away a game when they benched Tyrod for Peterman, and then he threw 5 picks. But
Hey, you just got to
uh,
thank Andy Dalton for that big heave.
yeah,
Who thought
yeah,
we'd be thanking Andy
I
Dalton for anything?
but I hope the Bengals enjoy those wings that the Bills are sending them. That was awesome to see. But yeah, for me, I mean, geez, the NFC playoffs are just so much better. Just because, basically, in Pittsburgh that, or not in Pittsburgh, in the AFC that it's either going to be New England or Pittsburgh going to the Super Bowl. So I don't. There's not as much intrigue, I guess, over there. But in the NFC, you can make a legit case that any one of those teams can end up going on to win. Just because the Rams are good now on both sides of the ball, and Todd Gurley is insane with all the numbers he's been putting up the last few weeks. And the Falcons, they were just in the Super Bowl last year. Their offense isn't as dynamic now, but they're obviously still a threat. And then Cam Newton, he's been there before. And then obviously you got Drew Brees, and they have a running game and shit now. So, and a good defense.
Yeah, realistically, NFC, any one of those 6 teams can make it. And maybe just because of what happens to Packers when they have a first-round bye, I'm going to put money on a wild card team taking the Super Bowl in the NFC. If I was putting money on it, I'd put money on either the Rams or the Saints, just because they're good on both sides.
Oh, you just said you put money on a wild card team.
What?
Yeah, the Rams and the Saints are both in the wild card.
Yeah. Vikings and Eagles are the.
Or just a game playing in the
wild card
round.
weekend, yeah.
Oh, yeah, because I was going to say Saints are not a wild card. But...
Sorry, I meant wild card weekend. My bad. Because Eagles without Wentz, I could easily see them losing to any one of those teams in Philly. And maybe it's because I just don't like the Vikings. I don't see the Vikings actually continuing this amazing season they've been on, just for the pure fact of I think the pressure's going to get to them, and they're not going to be the first team to host a Super Bowl.
And what's their team's history? They're choking in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And obviously, I'm not putting my faith in. Obviously, they both have good defenses, but I'm not putting my faith in Nick Foles or Case Keenum to go win a game. I'm still going to doubt Case Keenum. I'm sorry. I know he's had a great year, but I'm still not going to put my faith in him. Not in the playoffs. But yeah, I'd say I would say probably the winner of the Panthers Saints are going to end up representing the NFC in the Super Bowl.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think like you guys said, all the teams, majority of them have really good defenses. But I mean, NFL today is it's all quarterback play, and you got a boatload of first-year playoffs guys going in. Case Keenum, who knows? Maybe the pressure gets to him. Jared Goff, who knows? He's pretty much a fucking rookie going into a playoff game. The only proven guys you got in there is going to be Drew Brees and the Saints, obviously, and then Cam Newton. I think if you've got to give the edge to anybody, I'm going Drew Brees. I mean, that's just he's a tough guy to beat. He's one of the all-time greats. The only thing I will say is, the Vikings and Case Keenum remind me of a better Ravens team when Joe Flacco got his Super Bowl. Better as in defense-wise, and with a shitty quarterback that came to be great on his one Super Bowl, and then people still look back on it and they're like, wait, Joe Flacco has a Super Bowl? I could see it happening. The ball just gets tipped the right way during a couple games. Case Keenum's in the Super Bowl. I could see it.
No. No, not going to watch the Vikings host the Super Bowl.
All right. Was that a full thought? Anyway, guys, on the Saints Panthers thing, I mean, I think you're right. One of those teams, Saints are firing on all cylinders. I mean, granted, you could say Saints lost the Vikings earlier in the year, but I mean, you can't look at the early part of the year. It's like the Packers. They were flying on all cylinders in 2010. They peaked at the right time. That's what the Saints are doing. They're peaking at the right time. And I think, I mean, it would be great to see one of those, wild card teams from the AFC like Buffalo or Jacksonville get there. But I think, I'm still going with my dud of fantasy football, Bortles. He's the one Jacksonville's kind of like the Badgers in a way. They got great defense, got great receivers, great running backs, but they have a shitty quarterback, and that's what holds them back. So that's my take.
Actually, he was the hottest quarterback in December of all the quarterbacks.
That's great.
On God's note of who he wants to watch play, I do get that, but the Jags have been a shell of themselves the last 2 weeks, and that game could totally be a snooze fest based on the way the Jags have been recently playing.
Go watch Blake against the 49ers.
Well, and I heard Shady's a game time decision.
All the Jaguars need is for him to be decent, just competent. And they could get to the Super Bowl because their defense is that good. And Fournette is really good. I'm just saying
wasn't that good against the Niners or the Titans. So I'm saying the last 2 weeks.
You know what I'm trying to say.
They have laid an egg. Yes, I'm with you. But if they, I don't know. With
obviously, I'm not going to pick them to beat the Patriots or the Steelers, but I'm just saying they just need decent quarterback play so their defense isn't on the field the whole time. But, all right, let's wrap this playoff thing up with some picks for this week. Who you got in each of the matchup? Who's moving on? Who wants to start with that?
I'll go with it. All right, so I kind of made the comment earlier. I'm taking the Rams over the Falcons. I just think the Rams are too hot. They got great offense. They got great defense. Obviously, Todd Gurley has been a man among boys this whole season, minus a few incidences. But I think Rams are going to take this game. As for the other game in the NFC, you got Panthers Saints. I think it's going to be a much closer battle than the Falcons Rams. I think the Saints edge it out. One, they're at home. That crowd's crazy. Playoff game. Drew Brees played his mind out this year. You got a running game. You got an okay defense. Realistically, you take out Christian McCaffrey. Cam Newton doesn't have a lot else. I mean, he's got resources, but McCaffrey is his main guy. AFC, I'm taking Jags over the Bills. I just don't think the Bills have enough. They barely got there. It's a feel-good story, but Jags are going to take it. And I don't know. A lot of me wants to take Tennessee over the Kansas City Chiefs. I think a lot of that is the Chiefs just don't seem to know how to play in the playoffs. And I just think it's going to happen again. The Chiefs are obviously the much better team in this matchup, but I'm going to go with my gut, and I'm going to take Tennessee.
I'll go next just because I actually hate to admit it, but I actually agree with Diesel on all the picks. Rams are too good, and Falcons have holes in that defense. Saints, I just said it. Quarterback play is huge, and I think like Garb said, maybe if they had Calvin Benjamin, another weapon for Cam, he's got nobody. He's Funches. And then Jags over Bills. I just don't think Bills are there. And I don't know what. I'm pretty sure Shady's hurt right now. I'm not sure what's going on there. And that's huge for them. And then I like the Chiefs. I don't know if you picked the Titans, but I do like the Chiefs in that game. I think Andy Reid will go in there and handle business. So.
All right, Nate, you're up.
All right,
I just want to make it clear. Sorry, I picked the Titans there, Mike, not the Chiefs.
Yeah, no, I didn't realize that at the end.
Okay.
I mean, I just think the Chiefs have more experience, know what they're doing. Andy Reid's a better coach.
So I got Chiefs or Titans. I just feel like Andy Reid's been there. Mike Mularkey has not been there. I mean, it's one of those things. With Tennessee, he doesn't have the coaching experience and whatnot. As far as Jags Bills, with the doubt of Shady maybe not even playing, that's really kind of their offense. Because Tyrod's not elite Mooney. And then for Rams Falcons, I gotta go Rams. Rams are hot. I think the Rams are gonna go really far. Falcons are kind of a deadbeat. All right, we made it in the playoffs for multiple reasons, barely got in. And then I got the Saints because Sean Payton's been there, Drew Brees has been there. Panthers, yeah, the getting rid of Kelvin Benjamin was stupid on their part. They don't have the weapons. Funchess is not the answer. Ed Dixon's not the answer. There's just Cam doesn't have enough support there, and he's a big baby anyway. So going Saints.
Yeah, and I'm agreeing with Nate on all his picks. Like Chiefs and Titans. I mean, the Titans have been basically average the whole season. You look at it 9-7. Mariota, he hasn't been very good. He's threw more picks than touchdowns this year. And I don't know, they don't even really have any good wins. They just play in such a weak division, with the Colts and the Browns. And so I'll go with the Chiefs. And then in the other AFC matchup, I'll take the Jaguars just because, Buffalo's offense hasn't been that great. And like you said, Mike, Shady McCoy is hurt. He might not even play. So the Jags D could swallow him up pretty good. And then in the NFC, Falcons offense just been too inconsistent for me. Although them being a good weather team, they could end up putting up some points. But I don't know, the Rams are too good on both sides of the ball, and I don't think they find a way to stop Todd Gurley. And then I got the Saints just because their defense is playing so well, and Kamara is insane, and Ingram's had a great year too. And then when you're not relying on Drew Brees, but you still have Drew Brees, that's a pretty good thing to have. So I'm going with the Saints, especially at home too. So there's our NFL picks, boys. And before we wrap this podcast up, we have to touch, I guess, maybe for a small portion, on the shit college football final we got going.
I mean, here's the thing: are you even like a fan? I guess we're all Big Ten fans predominantly here. Would you be a fan of a final that ends Ohio State versus Michigan? I mean, a game that you've seen a lot.
No, I wouldn't. I don't want two teams in the Final Four.
And see, and I would have to agree with you there. And like I had expressed to Mooney earlier, I think the committee totally botched this whole thing. I'm not going to touch on the Central Florida deal. I'm saying in regards to the way it played out, because Georgia won the SEC championship, and then Clemson blew out Miami. Bama snuck in by default because Auburn lost. Well, what I'm saying is there's no reason Georgia couldn't have been the number 1 seed. Bama sneaks in at 4, and you have Clemson and Oklahoma play each other. So you guarantee there can't be an all-SEC playoff or championship. And no one is going to bat an eye at the SEC championship team being number 1 in the nation. Regardless, if Clemson beat Miami 100-0, everyone knows SEC is all holy, and they come from Man-Bear Bowl, so they're the best ever. No one's going to bat an eye. And that guarantees you don't run into this crap, because why do we want to see this? Like Mooney said the other day, we got to the playoffs because we don't want to see an SEC versus SEC team in the championship. We don't want to see LSU versus Alabama. We're done with that. We don't want to see that anymore. You don't want to see – imagine if it played out where Auburn played Alabama, 2 SEC teams again. That a game that you see every year. Like what – granted, this Georgia team and this Alabama team have not played each other. So that you got going for you. But nobody wants to watch this. I mean, realistically, if it's Alabama alone, people will watch it to tune in to hope that other people beat them. You're tired of it. Just like I feel like people are tired outside of Patriots fans of the Patriots. Nobody wants to watch them in the Super Bowl anymore. Nobody wants to watch the Dodgers in the World Series anymore. It's just what it is.
Yeah, I just what gets me is like I'll just like you can say that Alabama's one of the top 4 teams. That's fine. Like whatever. That's all subjective anyway. It's all opinion. And especially people are going to back that up now because they went and thrashed Clemson, who is a weak #1 seed, by the way. Always were the whole year. I don't know why they propped them up so much. But
hey, just quick, in honor of weak playoff teams, can we just go back and remember the Washington team with 1 loss that got in last year?
Got demolished.
I mean, there was a whole shitload of talk about Wisconsin not getting in, not playing anyone. Washington lost at home to a shitty USC team, still made the playoffs last year. Throwing it out there. Continue.
But, geez, now what the hell was I talking about? God damn it.
People need to remember that so that when they bash Wisconsin, the committee can just eat the dick of Washington when they put them in there. Washington ruined it for all teams because they got obliterated.
See, okay, here's what I was saying, is that you're going to go back and say that Alabama deserved to be in because they thrashed Clemson, who was a weak #1. But the committee said that, we didn't even think – I'll just mention this. I'm not going to deep dive in. I'm just going to mention it, that they didn't consider Central Florida because they never played anybody, right? They didn't beat anybody, like, serious. Well, Alabama's best win was against a 3-loss LSU team who lost to Troy at home. They didn't, and the one team good team they did play, Auburn, they were dominated that game. So, and I'll grant you that Ohio State shouldn't have lost by 40 points to Iowa, but at least they went and beat Wisconsin. That's better than any LSU win that they had. And Ohio State doesn't schedule fucking Mercer and Jacksonville State every year. And I don't know, it's just they only got in because they're Alabama, and I get it. But that's just what ticks me off about the whole thing. Not that Alabama's not good. It's just that they didn't deserve to be in. So I've been saving that for like a month.
Yeah, I mean, I think,
and I'm not watching on Monday. I'm not watching.
I think something that also has to be considered, and it's not ever really said, but the way your team is throughout history. I mean, if imagine that UCF is a mediocre team. Help me out. Let's go Nebraska. Who kind of has, not recently. That's a bad example. I need somebody that's a TCU, and they don't play anybody, but they go undefeated. But they kind of have that reputation of they've been in the Rose Bowl not that long ago, predominantly fairly good, at least a top 25 team. That's going to play a lot more than a Central Florida team that plays the same exact people. No one's going to tell you that, but you know damn well if that TCU team plays the same people and goes undefeated, and Central Florida does the same thing, TCU is going to the playoff. You know that. That's the way it is. That's like every year. That's why Bama always sneaks in, because they're a perennial power. And then when Nick Saban has a full month to plan for a team like Clemson, he'll pick them apart.
Yeah, and it's shit for teams like UCF, because no one's going to want to put them on their schedule, because that's if they end up losing.
It screws them over.
They'd rather it benefits them to play a Mercer than it is a UCF, which is garbage.
And it actually plays out like just kind of like BYU was good for a little bit. Not that good, I would say. But the Badgers scheduled them. They were dog shit. And it didn't benefit the Badgers at all.
The Badgers couldn't help that BYU went on a downturn ever since they put them on the schedule for 5 years later. Because you got to give them credit for putting a 10-win team on the future schedule. But
I just
go ahead, Nate. Sorry.
You're good. Oh, I just think, you can't penalize teams for, making, I mean, they make these schedules so far in advance. You can't penalize teams like Wisconsin for assuming that, like BYU, like anyone else, that they're going to be good in 5 years. I mean, it's just kind of the expected. I mean, you're penalizing good teams that put average at best to pretty good teams on your schedule, and you're helping teams like Alabama, who puts Cupcake Mercer, Jacksonville State, whoever, bumfuck team from the South, D1 double A, whatever. You shouldn't be penalizing universities that are on the come up like Wisconsin, and just screw Alabama. Just Jesus, the SEC. You're going to hear all these SEC bandwagon freaks that are like, oh, the SEC, we got two teams in the college football playoff. We're the elite, yes, but your conference has been garbage aside from that. If it wasn't for goddamn frickin' Michigan, Big Ten would still be undefeated in bowl play. So I look at it as how many teams we have in bowl games and how many wins compared to, oh, great. You guys have two of the best teams. I agreed with what Cowherd said the other day. They might have the two best teams, but they don't have the best conference, which is what they screwed up.
Well, just kind of going on the whole week schedule, you can't blame Wisconsin for the West Division not being as good. You look at 3, 4, 5 years ago, Nebraska was a decent team. Like, the West Division wasn't that bad. Iowa 2 years ago, I think it was 2 years ago, was when they were in the Big Ten championship against Michigan State. Like, the West used to be strong. This year it happened to be a down year, minus the Badgers. I mean, yeah, Iowa had a good win against Ohio State, but I don't think it's totally fair to just strength the schedule and say, hey, that's our number one thing we're looking at. And kind of also going back to Mike's comment about Washington, look at the Pac-12 this year in bowls. Holy hell, have they done terrible. But yet, Pac-12, they still have this respect that the media feels must be granted to them. Like, the Pac-12 has not been anything, I think, since Mariota left Oregon. Yeah, you can say USC this every single year. It's USC. There's always something going on there. But when you look at conferences, Big Ten is, I think, the best conference right now. You're going to argue, or you can't argue USC because of Alabama. You take Alabama out of SEC, I'm sorry. You take Alabama out of SEC, there's really nothing there. Yeah, you got Nick Chubb and the Dogs, but, I mean, that's about it down in that conference. ACC, you got Clemson and Miami. Well, we just showed Miami they're not that good. They just had good games against mediocre teams. Put your hands down. Put them down. And the Big 12 doesn't have defense. I mean, I'm not a big Baker Mayfield fan, but Oklahoma went through that conference and did exactly what they needed to do. The most well-rounded conference is the Big Ten, and we've shown it during these bowl games. Yeah, Michigan lost, but we still went 7-1. That shows a lot for the conference we're in. But yet, damn it, we're not SEC, we're not Bama. It doesn't mean anything. Bringing that back to the original topic of this playoff, it is terrible. I think that conference championships should mean something. If they're going to have a 4-team playoff, it should be of your 5 champions, unless there's some amazing outlier. You can even argue Ohio State last year. They didn't win the Big Ten. They got shut out. Obviously, winning your conference means something when it comes to this playoff. Unless they go to an 8-team playoff, I think almost by default, you have to pick of the 5 conference champions. Yeah, I know UCF kind of gets kicked out on that, but honestly, you put UCF against any of these top teams, 9 times out of 10, I think they lose. Now, I know they just played a great game against Auburn, but realistically, conference champion needs to be the ultimate decider when you're going to put these teams together, because what's the point of having this game then anyway? It first started, 4 years ago now? TCU was in the top 4. Well, Big 12 didn't have I think that's right, Big 12 Didn't have
they
a
didn't have
conference
a
championship
conference.
that year. TCU didn't make the playoff. But damn it, they were top 4 going into the last week, and they won. They did exactly what they were supposed to do, but they didn't make the playoff, most likely because they didn't have a conference championship. You can't pick and choose every year because you want this team or you like this team. If they haven't done what they need to do, then tough shit. You move on. It's just stupid how they do this every year. I get it, there's human error, but every year there's something that they do wrong. And every year they try, people, me, you, everyone else, even high-ranking like sports commentators, Scott Van Pelt, all these guys, every year has something to say about how they did it wrong, but yet they do it every year. When are they going to fix it? And realistically, until they figure something out, every year the playoff is going to continue to be crap for one way or another.
Like that kind of actually goes back on my point quickly of being a perennial power like Alabama. You know, they didn't win their championship, but everybody knows Bama. They know their history. They know Nick Saban. So it's going to be hard to keep them out of there, like of the committee's head. If they don't, you know what I mean? They didn't win it. They played a shit schedule. They still made it because they're a perennial power. It's like I said, you know, you got to build up year after year, and then you get so much more credit. Like Alabama has so much more credit regardless of how good they are. And you give a good coach like Nick Saban a month, he's going to trash a lot of teams. And the other thing I wanted to say was, you know, like you said, Central Florida didn't play anyone, and I'm on that bandwagon as well. Didn't play anyone as far as to get in, and they did beat an Auburn team, and that's what everybody's going to hang their hat on. But the thing is, that Auburn team played in the SEC, a tougher conference. I'm not going to say it's like tougher than the Big Ten. I would honestly say they're about equal. But anyways, they played in that week in and week out, okay? And then they played Alabama in the Iron Bowl. That's a huge game regardless. That's a rivalry game that's huge. That's going to take a lot out of you as a team. And then they played Georgia in the SEC Championship after beating Bama, lost that game. I mean, yes, it's a bowl game, but really you're playing Central Florida. You're already down on your opponent. There's no way they weren't down on their opponent. You're playing for what? You already beat Bama. You're coming off that super high. Then you're not going to you lost the SEC Championship and your chance to go to the playoffs. And not to mention, like I said, they played week in and week out tough competition. You know, when your toughest competition all year is Memphis, and they played an Iowa State team, whatever. But you don't play these top dogs. You're not getting as many people hurt, and you're just going to be a lot fresher when you can blow people out of the water. Like, I can't even name many of their opponents offhand. But you know what I'm saying. You know, yes, Bama plays at Mercer, but they also play an SEC schedule. You know, like I said, when your best win is Memphis, you come and beat an Iowa, you're much more rested. You're playing for something. You're playing for an undefeated season. What did Auburn playing for? To be the winners of whatever bowl that game was that nobody even watched? That's just my point.
I get it, but going back on Garbs, it's just that it's just major inconsistencies. That's all. No one knows what the criteria is. It's also like it changes, like you said, from year to year, and the only way I think we're gonna ever get close to fixing it, and as much as I don't really want it, the playoff is gonna have to expand. You'd think.
I mean, you look at it like, I mean, I heard an interview by Mike Leach a while ago, you know, D1 AA, they do a big playoff. Division II, they do a big playoff. Division III, they do a big playoff. The NFL, they do a big playoff. So I don't understand why D1 is so behind, or D1A is so behind the curve. You know, when it's more interesting to me to watch, you know, a D1 AA. I don't want to say it's more interesting to me to watch it, but you get that intensity. It's just like when we watch the NCAA tournament and a 15 beats a 2. It's interesting to watch, and I think it benefits the whole country as far as ratings, as far as, you know, other things, and people will pay attention. Nobody outside the South is going to watch this game on Monday. Nobody, and that's what they're losing. They're talking about how ratings are down, how all this other shit's down, but yet they're putting in Alabama, who really nobody outside Alabama likes Alabama. You know, you're putting in Georgia. you're not hitting. You're hitting one section of the whole United States that people aren't going to watch it if they're not. Nobody in Washington's going to watch it. No one in Wisconsin's going to watch it. No one in frickin' Maine is going to watch it. Nobody fucking cares. I'm just saying, from a whole, it's just it's really obnoxious that you got two teams basically playing probably within 200 miles of their and just nobody cares. Nobody fucking cares.
See, I'm just going to argue with you quickly because I am a fan of the 14 playoff. I like it. I like to look at it as the entire season is your playoff. You lose a game, that's your playoff. That's what it is. I think where the flaw lies is when they do things like let Alabama in, kind of like what Garb said when he said 5 power conferences. But I don't necessarily think it should be that. But I do think if you have, like you did, Alabama didn't win their conference. Ohio State did, and they were right up there. That means a lot. Tough sledding. You didn't get in because you lost your championship, is what it is. But I love the 14 playoff because every game is that much more important. And then if you move to an 18 playoff, yes, it's going to be a little bit more satisfying as far as that goes. But then it's going to be, so-and-so should have got in, whatever. I really like the 14 playoff because every game is do or die. That's what it is. The whole season is your playoff. I just think, like I said, I think they get it wrong occasionally, like this year with Alabama. Ohio State should have been over Alabama. And then last year, Washington should have played in the GoDaddy Bowl.
See, I'll say this though, is that I get what you're saying about about it lessening the importance of the season, but I don't you could still make it where if it's 8 teams, it just puts more of a value on the conference championship, and that's what you're gunning for. You're still going to want to win and if every game is still going to, you cut one game off the non-conference schedule since no one wants to schedule good out-of-conference teams anyway. You go and then you just put a bigger emphasis on your conference schedule, win your conference title game, and you're in. And then all bets are off. You got a shot.
Just win your conference title and win as many games.
You still might get left out for Alabama.
Huh?
You win your conference title and you still might get fucked out of a playoff spot.
But that could easily happen even if it was an 18 playoff.
No, it wouldn't.
You don't know that. You don't know that.
They would take the 5 Power Fives and then they'd take 3 at-larges. That's what they would do. Teams like UCF wouldn't get snubbed and have the potential to play, for a 8-team because they're a mid-major and nobody watches them play Memphis because nobody watches them play. They get snubbed. It's bullshit.
But you put Ohio State in over Alabama. Are you even having this big of a debate about it? You guys wouldn't care because you don't want to see Bama in there anyways. The only people that are going to care about that is Bama fans are going to be pushing for an 18 playoff. I'm saying they got it wrong. I'm personally a fan of the 4-team. That's just me.
So, like I said, I don't mind the 4-team, but I'm just saying if they're going to put the 4 teams, at least get the 4 teams right.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it's wrong. That was wrong. That was user error on them. Is what it is.
Because if you can't even get to your conference title game, you could fuck off. You don't deserve to get in.
Well, then Notre Dame's never getting in.
Join a fucking conference. Join the 21st century.
All right, so a few things based on all of that. First, Notre Dame doesn't have to worry about anything because the media every year decides they're a great team until they end up and show that they're not. So Notre Dame, I don't really care about them, conference or not. The media is going to be like, oh, yeah, top 5 team. 5 weeks in, you're going to realize they're not. The media just loves them. Second, I like Mike's analogy where he says the entire season's like a playoff. What I don't like about that analogy is if I go and lose in week 4 against a conference team, that doesn't look as bad as if I lose in week 10, just because I lost later in the season. I think if you're going to look at the entire season as a playoff, a loss is a loss. It shouldn't matter if it happens early on or later on. But if you lose early, like Syracuse did, or not Syracuse, Clemson to Syracuse, They did it early on. If that loss happens the week before the ACC championship, they're not in the ACC championship because that loss happened late in the year. I like the analogy, but there's flaws behind it. Also, with you getting into the playoff being, was it 15 different people? It's humans. Basically, what teams are doing, you just have to play for your conference championship and hope you've done enough that these 15 men are going to look at your schedule and say, hey, they might be good, they might not be. But realistically, I feel like teams ultimately are just playing for their conference championship in hope that maybe they get lucky. Because back in the day, yeah, we hated the Alabama LSU championships, but with computers, at least there was predictability behind it. You knew what to expect or what might to expect. Where when you get 15 guys together who are just shooting the shit, you don't know what's going on. You just got to hope that your team comes up in that Final Four because you might have done everything right and you might still be out. I'm not going to get into the specifics behind that, but you get what I mean. You can do everything right and still be wrong. So what's the point?
But with your point, a shit loss. Clemson loses that game, last game of their actual season, and they still would play Miami. They still throttle Miami. I mean, they got a good chance of getting in. They still have that. They have a shit loss on there. But you know what I mean? That game would never be – you'd never have a shit loss if you put yourself in a position to be in your championship game.
Yeah, and maybe
that would be your last game.
I was wrong on that in the fact that they would have still been in the championship game, but depending on when you lose has a huge effect on you if you lose early on or later on. Now, I'm not talking about those non-conferences because those obviously are much worse, but if you lose a conference game early in the season versus later in the season, that later loss, you see it every year. Oh, you're the third best team in the nation. Now you're 6. But if you have, let's say, 6 weeks left in the season, you can still work your way up that ranking. But just because you lost late in the season, you've greatly diminished your stock. So I like your analogy. I'm just saying there's kind of some flaws behind it. But yeah, the A team really solves the issue. But I also like the aspect of you need to have some controversy. As much as I'm hypocriting myself, being a hypocrite, holy crap, hypocrite. There we go. I'm being a hypocrite when I say this, but if you go to an A team, I think that takes away a lot of that complaining. What we're doing right now, we've been doing it for the past, 15 minutes, talking about the flaws. You need to have some flaws in something to continue to improve it. If you jump to that 8 team, I think you're going to solve too many of the problems that it's not going to be as exciting. No one's going to care about the selection show anymore. Did our team make it? I mean, yeah, I would prefer the 8 team just because then you know what's going to happen. But I just think that the committee likes the aspect of we don't know what's going to happen. Are we going to be right? Are we going to be wrong? Who's going to get pissed? What's going to happen? I think that's something they thrive on. And you're going to get people who get pissed off who are going to then possibly boost ratings to watch these games just to want to see a team lose. Like me, I wanted to see Oklahoma lose because I don't like Baker. I don't care about Georgia. It bit me in the ass that Bama won. I wanted to see Clemson and Georgia with the understanding that Clemson would win. Well, I don't give a shit about Monday now. I'm going to watch Raw. I mean, it's easy fix for me, but it's a real shitty end to this college season that for us Badger fans was amazing, exciting, and just downright very fun to be a part of.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not watching on Monday. I'll find something else to watch.
One perk.
But let's wrap this up quickly, though.
Wrapping this up quickly, I think that an 8-team playoff would draw from the other bowl games, rating wise. But aside the point, one huge benefit, in my opinion, to doing an 8-team playoff is you're not going to have nearly as many guys bailing out of their bowl game because they're not in the playoffs. Because it's a meaningless bowl game. You have 4 more teams of guys that want to play for something.
And another thing about the 8-team playoff is that, like, sort of like in the NCAA tournament, if you really can't be one of the top 64 teams in, like, you don't really have something to cry about, really. But if you're not in the top 8, then it's that same sort of thing where it's like if you're not deserving of the top 8, you don't deserve to be in the conversation anyway. So there's really nothing for you to bitch about if you can't even make the top 8, whether
That's
But
fair.
number 5, there's obviously you're still one of the top teams in the country, and then it obviously makes less to talk and debate about that. But I would rather like have more good teams, I guess, with a sort of a fairer shot. Because if you're just going to base the team off of name recognition like you are now anyway, it would be whether the strength of schedule would be damned. But yeah, so any well, I'm not even gonna. You gonna make a pick on Monday's game or no?
Who cares?
Yeah, fuck it. All right.
Roman
Time-
Reigns, Intercontinental Champ.
Okay. And there's your WWE segment of the first podcast of the new year.
Raw 25, end of the month. Royal Rumble, end of the month. Just a quick fix here. First ever women's Royal Rumble match. There will be 30 women, so there's going to be some divas from the past coming back. Might be fun. Check it out, WWE Network. You can pay for it, or you can stream it like me. Whatever works. I'll be there. Will you?
Sounds like an endorsement.
Yeah, there you go. We just need to be sponsored by the WWE Network, and then we're good.
But
All right. And before we get to our last few good minutes segment, we do have some breaking news in college football. Arizona has fired their football coach, Rich Rodriguez. So
what?
I know you guys are shocked.
Wow, dude.
I
Breaking.
cared so much about Rich Rod when he was
Could've
at
kept that one
Michigan.
strong.
I can't believe he got fired again.
All right, so that's it. Who wants to start off? And we've been off for about a month and a half, something like that.
All right, I got a quick one. Mainly because 2 of us in this chat here benefited from this man. If you were in your fantasy football finals and you had Todd Gurley, you probably won your championship. Mike won his. Todd Gurley was a fucking beast. Depending on your league's points, 80 points in 2 weeks, you probably won your championship. I had Kamara. That's a big help. Really nice there. So, to all you people who won that championship, had Todd Gurley, great job for you. Todd Gurley, thank you. You helped me win a championship. Mike's happy, otherwise he'd have lost. So, my few good minutes right there goes to Todd Gurley. Hey, maybe we'll see you in the Super Bowl. We don't know. Just get through this week. I'll be watching.
Yes, I would also like to point out that Mooney did not win my league, so there is that going on. I'm going to take my 2 minutes here, whatever, to recognize the Brew Crew coming around doing some off-season moves. In classic Brewers fashion, we signed what would be only one of the best pitchers out there, Giovanni Gallardo, back to be a Brewer. Wow, David Stearns, you are the man. He only went, get this, Gallardo went 5-10 last year with an ERA over 5. You want to get better? What you do is you hire people, bring people back that were terrible the first time around, and, just see if they'll be better the second time after they've gotten monumentally worse. That was a great move. I was really excited for David to come in as a new GM a couple years ago. He helped that Astros team get where they were, and I don't know what the hell happened to him. Maybe the cold weather froze his brain. 2 minutes.
All right, Nate, let's make it snappy.
Turnover chain, my fucking ass. What a legendary last comment there by Paul Chris. It sold us for the win or against the U. Alex Hornibrook looked like the second coming of Tom Brady. And that's all there is. Orange Bowl champs.
All right, I will take mine on saying that I was right, pointing out in the group chat that it was a good trade for the 49ers to trade for Jimmy Garoppolo. He's been killing it. 5-0 since they got him. They're going to be, and I'm going to call it now, that they're going to be the subject of this next Hard Knocks, and that's all I got to say about that.
You can't base you being right off of 5 games.
Sure, I can.
I mean, sure, if that floats your boat. It's got to be at least a whole season.
I was right.
Yeah.
Will Jimmy Garoppolo go undefeated next year? Who knows? We'll have to tune in next season. I'll be there.
Well, if he goes 1-0, Mooney will be right. So
Yeah, I was right. It was worth the trade, obviously.
Hey, Carlos Hyde says that they're going to win the Super Bowl next year, so
Yeah, that's
take it
not
or
right.
leave it.
He's got to stay on the team first.
That's true.
All right. So we've all found out that Mike's a closet U fan. We all know he's got an Ohio State shirt in there, a Michigan shirt. Fucking pick a damn team and stick with them,
I quit being a bandwagon, Mike.
fucker.
don't make me get out my Oklahoma jersey, boy.
But at least you never paid for the Viking Stadium. So,
Ooh, killer.
2 months, whatever.
and with that, that'll do it for episode 28 of A Few Good Mics. Whether you're listening on iTunes, watching on YouTube, I'd like to thank you. We'll make sure to put out a podcast every week this time now that we're in the new year. And we'll see you next time.